I thought I'd come back real quickly for a quick preview of Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. Very significant fight at the lightweight division. This fight is very important for the United States market specifically. And, I am being serious when I do say this. I do understand that this fight is something that maybe not a lot of people are receptive to because of the fact that both guys have carried, you know, I'd say maybe more specifically in Ryan's case, but to an extent in Tank's case, have carried gimmicks. Both of them have been kind of reluctant and dismissive of what you would call legacy and trinkets and things of that nature. Neither guy have really made undisputed or really fighting many top guys apart from each other, specifically in Ryan's case, their priority. So, a lot of people I don't think are quite receptive to this, but this fight is important because both guys have built up cult of personalities. Both guys have built up fan bases online and just abroad through their fighting. Specifically in Ryan's case, how he's been able to market his exploits, how he's been able to collaborate with content creators among different social media platforms. Through that, he and Tank Davis have effectively created a perfect storm in regards to marketing. I mean, the scenery, the scenery, the camaraderie, the overall atmosphere of this fight weekend has pretty much been unparalleled over the past few years in America, save maybe Canelo's fights, because of the type of pull that these two have been able to bring. And this fight should probably be a pretty decent success on pay-per-view. Overall, I think these two guys definitely fought each other within the time window in which they've needed to, because this is a fight I think that needed to be made pretty quickly. I don't really believe that either guy really is going to be fighting for that much longer. Because in these two guys' case, there's not a lot of adversaries either guy are really looking to fight, as they're both kind of tied down due to network exclusivity deals and their promoters being unwilling to work with, say, Top Rank, which have the other top whiteweights, Lomachenko and Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. And also, another factor that needs to be considered is that financially, in regards to the lucrative nature of this fight, is going to be it's not going to be eclipsed by really any other fight either guy take for the rest of their career, unless someone is able to create some type of a meteoric rise, or maybe unless somebody like a Keyshawn Davis is able to create some type of serious buzz for himself over the next couple of years, or maybe if Shakur Stevenson is able to clear out the lightweight division, save from the winner of this fight, if he's able to pick up some wins and maybe create an even bigger name for himself. I don't really see a fight of this magnitude really being replicated by either guys in their career. Tank is already speaking like someone who is more or less, he's talking about how he's a legend and how he's going to retire eventually. He's speaking like someone who is kind of already satisfied with the point in which he's reached in his career. This is the type of fight that I think is going to partially define his legacy. I think this is going to be a fight in Tank's case where this is probably going to be the most memorable fight people look back on, no matter what Ryan goes on to achieve, due to the fact that he's brought a lot to the table in regards to the marketing and promotion of this fight. And in the case of Ryan Garcia, this is pretty much a legitimizer for him. If he's able to win this fight, he himself states he doesn't really care too much about trinkets. I don't really see him, because of his skill set and many of his limitations, I don't really see him establishing much of a future, even if he is to win this fight beyond lightweight. But nevertheless, a win for this fight would definitely solidify him as probably one of the better fighters in the world. But at the same time, if he goes on to lose this fight and it delegitimizes him, I suppose, in his and in the consensus of viewing audience's eyes, considering Ryan himself has already talked about that he's going to be retiring he said he was going to retire at 25 or 26. I don't really see him going on that much further after this fight, and I think with the type of image that he's built up for himself, there are plenty of different avenues he could explore outside of boxing. Anyways, all of that drivel aside, this non-boxing talk, let's actually get into the fight and what I think is going to happen. Stylistically, I think this fight's pretty explosive. Should be a reasonably exciting fight, no matter what happens. I do think the early rounds will be pretty tentative. I don't really think either guy are going to be too willing to engage. I think Tank, being the smaller guy, he's going to be looking to utilize sort of a Casemiro or a David Hay type of an approach. Not necessarily with the same mechanics. He's not going to be as ruthless, as aggressive, and he's not going to be piling on with, as many wide hooks as those two. But I mean in the sense that he's going to be using movement. He's going to be looking to pick his spots. He's not going to look to engage Ryan too much in the center of the ring, because that's going to allow Ryan to be able to get into a rhythm. That's going to allow him to be able to pick up his feet and counterpunch and use his length to be able to catch him with shots, at long distance quickly. And that's going to allow him to potentially rack up points. And it's going to be a bit more difficult, I think, for Tank to be able to capitalize and catch him with big shots, especially seeing as he's not really an adept pressure fighter, as someone who can quickly close distance. So I don't think he's going to quite engage him in the center of the ring. I do think he's going to concede the center of the ring and try to make Ryan Garcia utilize his very flawed offensive footwork. I think Ryan Garcia is going to... I think he might potentially outwork Gervonta Davis in the early rounds. Tank is obviously going to be, as I previously stated, he's going to be a bit circumspect. So he's going to be trying to get out of range. He's going to be, constantly resetting his feet. And I think if Ryan is able to establish a jab early on in this fight, which I fully expect him to, as that's a pretty obvious key to victory for him in this fight, establishing the jab, following up with straight shots, he's going to be able to, if not catch Tank with clean shots, he's going to be able to get the better of some exchanges just via activity alone. And I do think many of the early rounds will be pretty cagey, and Tank will forfeit some of them on tactics. But the way he's going to fight, he's going to look to pick his spots, and he's going to look to jump on Ryan whenever he makes mistakes. Ryan has big issues lunging in. He lunges in with his leaping left hook. He falls over his front foot. He's not, even though he lunges with his shots and does kind of fall in with his punches, he doesn't really know effectively how to smother. He doesn't really have an effective inside game, and nor has he ever fought opponents that actually know how to engage on the inside either. And the ones that did got knocked out before they could even, were too limited to even evade his shots before they could get in range. Tank's going to be moving around. It's going to force Ryan to cut the ring off, which he's not adept at doing at all. He's going to be lunging in with punches. He's going to catch Tank here and there, but eventually once Tank starts to establish... well, I shouldn't say establish, but starts to gain confidence in his own ability to take Ryan's shots, and once he realizes how he'll be able to potentially take power away from Ryan's shots by leaning back and staying away, and not falling in with his shots himself, he's going to force Ryan to get reckless and start to forcing him to get desperate to try to solidify a stoppage. Maybe some of the rounds will be close, so Ryan will potentially get desperate trying to, make a statement for himself in this fight, and I think he's going to run into a left hand and get knocked out. I'm pretty confident in the result of this fight. I give Ryan a decent enough puncher's chance, but I think it's a 70-30, 75-25 type of a fight. If they're to fight 10 times, Tank probably wins 8 times. I think Tank is just too good fundamentally, and I think the way he fights, and even though he's not a perfect fighter on the back foot, and his lack of dimensions does not really allow him to get his shit off and utilize his work rate to the degree that I think he'd like to. I believe that the way Ryan fights and his inability to close distance while maintaining defensive responsibility, that's going to be the biggest factor that costs him in this fight. I'm picking Tank to win, probably by 7th or 8th round stoppage. He may or may not be behind on the cards. I think it'll be pretty close, pretty cagey. I'm not sure the fight will necessarily live up to the explosive, dynamite type of expectations that that people are potentially coming in with. I think Tank has a healthy respect for Ryan's power and his abilities, hence why he laid all those stipulations on him. And I do think he's going to be cautious, and I think Ryan will probably reciprocate that same thing, and he's not going to look to engage Ryan or Tank too much in the center of the ring. Both guys are going to look to play counterpunchers, and it's going to be a matter of who basically fucks up first. And I believe it's going to be Ryan Garcia, just based on his temperament, just based on his body mechanics. I believe he's less classically trained in boxing than Gervonta Davis, and I think overall, the fight just leans in his favor. So I really don't have a horse in this race. I think I'm not particularly a fan of either guy, but I feel like I have a pretty objective view on who I think is going to win this fight, and I'm pretty confident Gervonta Davis by stoppage for this one. So let me know what you all think. Have a good one.